What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips ahead of Game Week 5. So as always, going to go through some of the popular transfers in and out, and I'll give you my opinion on whether I think they're good or bad moves. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well, especially as it's a double upload day ahead of tomorrow's deadline. Now, İlkay Gundogan has been talked about quite a lot, especially within the Twitter and YouTube communities. Overall, FPL managers have been already transferred in by 55,000. My general opinion with him is he's a nice short-term punt because Nottingham Forest at home is such a good fixture, and if you're not already on double defence or double attack, and especially if you've got Haaland, adding another attacker for a price at 7.6 million seems quite nice. Now, we're all assuming that he's definitely going to start this game because he didn't start the last one. Let's just remember this is Pep Guardiola and Man City. While I think it is likely that he starts Forest at home, and I think most people would agree on that, it's not 100% guaranteed, so just prepare yourself for that. But as a short-term punt, he's nice. But because Bernardo Silva is staying, by the looks of it, unless he gets sold over the next couple of days, it looks like he's staying. Gundogan's minutes are not necessarily secure over the next few weeks, so you have to be an FPL manager that is prepared to take that risk and just realise that it probably is a short-term punt. I'd be looking at him for maybe Forest at home, and the reason I say it's a good fixture, apart from the fact it's Nottingham Forest, is the way they played against Spurs. I was quite impressed with how brave they were. They committed men forward, but they were susceptible, especially on the counter-attack. They do that against Man City. Man City will score 4 or 5 goals past them, right? Spurs got 2. They could have easily had 3 if Kane had put the penalty away. There was other chances as well. Man City will make them pay even more than Spurs did. So that is why I would like to have a second attacker. And then the way Villa are playing as well, that could be a good fixture too. Now, for a lot of you, you're probably sat there with 1 or 2 free transfers. You're not quite sure what to do with them. You don't necessarily see moves in future weeks. Possibly you're thinking of wildcard around game weeks 8 or 9, which a lot of people are talking about. If that's the case, you can probably afford to take some short-term punts. And what better way to do it than Gundogan, right? He's not nailed, but which Man City attackers really are? We're all worried about Haaland over the next couple of games, and he costs over 11 million. So just to kind of reiterate, good short-term punt, not 100% guaranteed to start against Nottingham Forest, but it looks likely. Whether or not he starts against Villa, I don't know. In Game Week 7, I'd probably be looking to already take him out for maybe a shorter-term punt again ahead of a Game Week 8 or 9 wildcard. But again, there's nothing wrong with going with a little bit of risk early on. Just make sure you're the FPL manager that's not going to rage as soon as he doesn't start, because that could happen. It's Man City. So we're 4 games into the season and people have had enough of Mo Salah. 6.2 points per match, it ain't good enough. 2 goals, 1 assist in the first 4 games, not good enough. Over 300,000 transfers out already. And all jokes aside, you all know what I'm about to say. I don't really see any real reason to get rid of him, and it feels a little bit like what happened with Trent Alexander-Arnold last week. He was the most sold player because he had no goals, no assists, no clean sheets. Then he gets one of each of those things against Bournemouth, comes away with a 17-pointer, and suddenly everyone wants to hold him, maybe bring him back in again. And I'm not sitting here guaranteeing you a 17-pointer against Newcastle or Everton or Wolves, but I do think they are 3 very good fixtures that I would find it difficult to transfer Salah out before they happen, right? And also, and there's a few things to it. One, I just think Salah's minutes look really good right now. Jota's not there, so if Diaz is playing a lot on the left, Nunez and Firmino are playing through the middle, there's not that much competition for Salah. But aside from that, he's just a bit of a machine anyway, right? That's one of the things that's so good about him over the last 5 years. He's always available and he often plays 80 to 90 minutes. So in a period where we've got midweek games, I'm not personally that concerned about him missing out. It might be that in some of them he does come off around 70, 75. But look at that Bournemouth game. It was like 7 or 8-0. They could have easily taken him off. Don't get me wrong, he wouldn't have been happy about it because he would have really wanted to get in on the goal scoring action. But they could have rested him. The game was won. They got more important games to come up and they still didn't take him off. So that's a really big plus with him. I think a lot of us are fairly convinced that Haaland will not get 2 starts in game week 5 and 6. I think he probably will start Forest and then maybe miss out in game week 6. Harry Kane, Conte has even said that he might have to miss out at some point. I'm not convinced that happens, but let's wait and see. With Salah, I just don't have those worries. So that's one good reason to keep him. You could argue that if you're worried about Haaland's minutes this week and you don't want to captain Kane or Son against West Ham, Salah's also the best captain this week. And then Everton away and Wolves at home are just good fixtures as well. Like I've said before, I'm prepared to have a conversation about selling Liverpool players ahead of Chelsea away for game week 8 and then Arsenal away in game week 10. I think they've got to play Man City in 11 as well. But I don't think now is the time to get rid of him, right? And you can talk about spreading the money around. That could work out as long as you're happy to captain one of the other big hitters every week. Haaland, Kane, Son, De Bruyne, and maybe even Jesus as well. But I think people just... I don't know. I feel like the margins are so fine. If he puts away those 2 chances against Bournemouth, he has hardly any chances out this week and way more people are captaining him. But because he just about missed them, and the first one, like another day, he puts that in like 99 times out of 100, nobody is talking about getting rid of him. And I just think I haven't seen enough so far to say that Salah is not going to do Salah things over the course of this season. Liverpool's underlying numbers for expected goals are now the best in the league per 90. They're just ahead of Man City. They are the top 2 attacks in the league as they have been for the last however many seasons. Salah's personal numbers, expected goals, expected assists per 90, you can see them on the screen. They are not quite the same, but they are virtually identical to what they were last season. I know some people will say things like, yeah, but if you take the Bournemouth game out of the equation, they're not quite as good. Well, guess what? He has 0 across the board if you take out all the games. That's not really how it works, right? He will get good chances in the good games, and I would argue he's got 3 of them coming up. So I'm going to leave it there because I've done over 3 minutes on Salah. I personally think in most cases it's crazy to sell him. If you haven't got like Haaland and you want him this week, fair enough. I still don't think it's a good move. If you want Kane next week for Fulham at home, fair enough. I still don't think it's a great move. I would just keep him. I think this could be another Trent Alexander-Arnold all over again. Well, I didn't think it could get any worse for Mason Mount owners. He goes and gets subbed at half-time in the last game against Leicester. It just hasn't been pretty at all. He still doesn't have any attacking returns. He's dropped to 7.8 million. 80,000 FPL managers have already transferred him out ahead of a really good fixture, and I completely get it. I just want to take the other side, though. For those of you that are thinking, okay, I've got other transfers I need to make. Could I keep him one more week against Southampton away? I don't think that's completely crazy because Southampton and Fulham are pretty good games, and some of you will have bigger priority transfers to make, so you could hold on to him, but the numbers are not encouraging at all. 0.15 expected goals per 90, 0.08 expected assists. That is massively down on last season, and I'll always caveat this by saying these things can happen over short sample sizes, but it doesn't look good. It just isn't clicking with him in that Chelsea attack. Sterling is now the main man there as well. I think for most people you've got to get rid, and I think for most people he probably will be a priority transfer out, and I'm going to keep it simple. If you've got the money, I still think Luis Diaz for the next 3 weeks looks pretty good. I think some people will look at Saka, but given how he's performed so far, I just don't think I would go there. So Luis Diaz possibly for the next 3 fixtures, those ones I've just talked about with Salah, Newcastle, Everton and Wolves. After that, they do have Chelsea away, which is not ideal, but the game week after that is Brighton at home. So 4 of the next 5 are actually okay. So Diaz is probably my favoured £8 million-ish midfielder. And if you're looking to downgrade, I would probably just go for Rodrigo. I still think over maybe 4 to 5 game weeks, there is slight worries about his game time. Once Sinisterra, once Bamford are fit. I've seen a lot of Leeds fans talking about this. But in the short term, given the Everton game is obviously midweek, the next game's at the weekend, of course, and the next game after that will be the following weekend. I think Rodrigo, again, in the short term, looks pretty good. And I'm assuming that most people have got Martinelli. So essentially, Mason Mount to Diaz if you want to keep that price point around 8 million. Martinelli if you don't have him. Then I'd go to Rodrigo, and that's probably about it. If you've got all 3 of those players, you'll have to start looking elsewhere. But for Mason Mount, I think it's probably time to just get rid. So a lot of people have been calling me out about Odegaard because I said I wouldn't pick him in my Game Week 1 squad, and he's obviously done really well. But in my defence, I never said he was a bad pick. I just said that I think there's 3 better Arsenal picks, which I'll stand by, right? And of course, Saka didn't do very well, fair enough. But even outside of that, I think Jesus is a better use of an Arsenal slot. I think Martinelli is still a better use. Although as we get into midweek games and stuff like that, we might see Martinelli's minutes be reduced a little bit, probably not so much for Odegaard. Let's wait and see what happens. And then I don't know if I would have tripled up, so I would have probably gone for a defender like Gabriel, and obviously some of you went for Zinchenko, Saliba, Ramsdale, etc. So I don't think it was a bad call to say that Odegaard wasn't in the top 3 picks. He does look pretty good right now, but my opinion hasn't really changed. Like, his expected goals per 90 are quite nice at 0.3. I still prefer Jesus and Martinelli as attackers. Yes, he's done done very well in terms of outcome. But if you're asking me to bet on the next 2 to 3 fixtures who scores more, I'd probably still put my money on Jesus or Martinelli. So it's just one of those players where 341,000 managers have already transferred him in. I wouldn't sit here and argue that he's a bad pick, which is not what I tried to argue originally. I still just think there are better options at Arsenal. Now, of course, if you don't have a defender and you've got Martinelli and Jesus, they are attacking so well that you could say that at 6.6 million, he's still great value, and you could triple up on the attack. I think Villa at home, Man United away, Everton at home, and even Brentford away are still pretty good fixtures. You just have to kind of maybe keep in mind when you might wildcard, because if you're not looking to use it around game weeks 8 or 9, well, suddenly then you've got Spurs at home and Liverpool at home with 3 Arsenal attackers. How are you going to get rid of them? So just keep those things in mind. Again, I don't think he's a bad pick. I don't think anyone's making a mistake transferring him in. I still think there are 3 better Arsenal picks, but it's just my opinion. I'm often wrong, so who cares anyway? This season is weird. There's FPL managers on Twitter that have just burnt their transfer for the last 2 weeks. Some people just have no idea what to do because their teams are well set up. And meanwhile, Trent's the most transferred out player last week. Salah's been transferred out by over 300,000 this week. And so has Cancelo before Nottingham Forest at home. 200,000 transfers out. It does seem a bit crazy on paper, but I can't be completely against it because I'm considering doing the same myself. Maybe it's slightly because of boredom. I just don't know what to do with my team and I'm trying to find things to do. But if you watched the team selection video earlier, you'll know that I'm looking at Cancelo to Dunk. Then I would bench Dunk this week. That would then fund Reed to Rodrigo. Dunk is a better bench option than Reed anyway, but it also allows me to play him against Leicester at home instead of Gabriel against Man United away in game week 6. And it also gives me Rodrigo for Everton at home, Brentford away, and Nottingham Forest at home, which potentially is worth more points than Cancelo against Forest, Villa away, and Spurs at home. I do think this week I could be heavily punished by that move. And if you've got Cancelo, there is absolutely no reason to look to force him out of your side. Yes, at 7.1 million, a Man City attacker with good minutes is still decent, right? There's still plenty of potential for clean sheets, but I know we're paying that premium because we want the attack and returns, and his numbers are massively down on last year. 0.02 expected goals, 0.06 expected assists, and if we look at the way Man City are playing those inverted fullbacks, so Walker and Cancelo are basically forming a 3, so they've got the 2 centre-backs, the 2 fullbacks plus Rodri, and then everyone else is attacking. That means he's not getting forward quite as much. Now, we do need to note that he has already got an assist this year. That was from getting in the box. Yes, it was an own goal, maybe a bit fortunate, but it's not like he was kind of stuck on the halfway line. And like I said with Mason Mount, these small sample sizes, it can be a bit dangerous to look at them too closely because for the next 4 games, he might be super attacking. So I don't think anyone thinks it's completely out of the question that he does suddenly become as good as last year. But right now, it doesn't look good enough. And if you've got a move that you can make by transferring them out, I think it's possibly fair game. You just have to accept that getting rid of a player like Cancelo before Nottingham Forest at home could massively backfire. If I make the 2 moves that I'm talking about, Cancelo goes and gets a 12-pointer and Rodrigo blanks, I can't blame anyone else but myself because I know that's a possibility. I'm just hoping that over maybe the next 3 to 4 weeks it works out better. So yeah, just to summarise again, I think it's an okay transfer to think about, but for most people you don't need to do it. Nottingham Forest at home is a really good fixture. You can just hold him. So I had absolutely no plans to talk about Firmino in this video or at all this week, and then I saw that he'd been transferred in by 105,000 managers. Do not go there. Don't be fooled by what happened against Bournemouth. He's not a good use of a Liverpool slot, and I would argue he's not a good use of a forward slot whatsoever. I think Jesus for a similar price is better. Ivan Toney at Brentford is probably better as well. I think Robertson, Trent, Salah and Luis Diaz are also all better uses of your Liverpool spots. But ultimately, the big issue is Nunez will be back soon, and when that happens, he will take lots and lots of minutes off Firmino. So if you're considering it, just don't do it. There we go. Hopefully you enjoyed that one and found it useful. If you did, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here as well. I will try to get back to using that end screen I've got where I go through the 5 top most transfer players in and out for defenders, midfielders and forwards. But time is kind of the essence because the deadline is tomorrow and I want to make sure I can get this video out for you tonight so that then I can do the game week preview tomorrow. So that's the reason why. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about the players that I've talked about. Are you really getting rid of Salah? Who's getting rid of Cancelo? And surely none of you are actually going to buy Firmino. Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will leave that one there. Thank you very much for watching. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again soon.